There's a lot going on in this movie.
It was like I was watching it for the first time.
I like this movie.
It has a special place in my heart.
Very close to my heart.
This was a good one.
I want to like this movie.
What? Seriously?
I loved it.
Very flat, kind of boring.
This movie blows me away. This movie turns me on.
Terrible. It is terrible. All these keys everywhere. Influences, baby.
Huge fan.
That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
Hello out there in YouTube and podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, where we talk about horror movies and science fiction films and those key elements that lift and or separate them from the average genre fare. Are you new to us? Are you curious about our name, Johnny Has the Keys? Where did it come from? Well, if you're a horror movie fan, then you probably realize it's a line we lifted from Night of the Living Dead. However, we've turned it into a metaphor. In the movie, she's looking for her brother's car keys. In this, we're looking for keys in movies that we think either inspired future movies or were inspired by prior movies. That's what this podcast is about. So if you're a movie obsessor like us, then that's why we do it, and probably why you're listening to us. And those of you that are coming back already know that. Just wanted to lay out that for some newbies out there that may not realize what we do. I am here with my good friend David Horton. He is the co-host of this program. We have been talking movies for so long that, well, God fell asleep. So
yeah,
that's just the way it is. Now we just do it for everybody, because if not, we would be rambling to ourselves, by ourselves, and lonely.
True.
Hey, David,
and we do
how are
ramble.
you?
None of this is scripted. None of this is decided. Tim just says whatever he wants all the time.
I do.
Oh, yeah.
Ramble.
It's good to be back. We normally start with like an icebreaker of what we've been doing. Specifically, if we've done anything in our respective genres or in vice versa genres. And I did vice versa and a mixed media. Finally finished You Like It Darker. I know that you in particular, but me also, have been influenced by that little author named Stephen King and all of his works.
Just a little.
And just a little. And I don't know why this came up on my Audible as a you might like after I had listened to some other title that I can't remember, but it said you might like, and it was You Like It Darker. And I looked and it was by Stephen King. I'd never heard of it before. I think I mentioned it to you a couple of weeks ago when I started it, that it was, and you had mentioned it's a collection of short stories and you had read it.
Yeah, it's his most recent book. He doesn't have a new one coming out until May.
Oh, okay. So see, I haven't read King in years, literally. Anything by him. Any
Actually, we're in May. I just realized that, so it could be out right now.
So yeah, so I haven't read anything by him in forever. And this I got on audiobook, and I highly recommend it. I remember because I had read Skeleton Crew, I had read Nightmares and Dreamscapes, Night Shift. There was another one that was 4 Past Midnight. And then there was another one that was short stories, but I can't remember. Different Seasons? Is that those are
Different Seasons is novellas like 4 Past Midnight, Night Shift, and Skeleton Crew, and Nightmares and Dreamscapes are all short stories. Sometimes he collects the longer ones to themselves. In this one, he combined both.
Yeah, it has like 3 lengthier stories and then some that are really short, almost like Edgar Allan Poe, a couple of pages short.
Right.
But I would recommend to you, since you've already read it, it might be worth it if you can find it and get the audiobook, because the audiobook is narrated by, 3 of the short stories are narrated by Stephen King.
I did. That's how I listened to it.
Okay.
I
Did you like Will Patton? I thought he was brilliant.
He's great. He does all the Mr. Mercedes books, too.
Oh, wow. Then I'm going to have to get those, because I thought he was one of the best audiobook readers, especially in that New England sound because he's very laid back. He's very slow. He's very like I'm just talking to you about what I'm talking about, and that's the way it is. And it really worked for some of those characters because a lot of the characters, a lot of the POV in this is that angsty protagonist. So, like the two that stand out to me, the three that stood out to me the most were the dream one, and I wrote it down. Hang on, let me look at my notes. Danny Coughlin's bad dream, which they even said the inspiration, King's inspiration was he was thinking, what if somebody had a vision of where to find a dead body?
A dead body.
But they didn't know what to do then, because if you tell the cops, they'll go, how did you know it was there?
And then all of a sudden they think you're the one that killed him. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Which was great paranoia, great storytelling, really cool, good characters. I think it would make a cool, if they were still doing like a Twilight Zone or Night Gallery, it would be a great hour episode. It would be awesome. The other one was the one you recommended, which was Rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
Which turns out to be a sequel of sorts, which I thought was very cool. I don't want to give anything away for people who haven't read it.
It was out there before the book came out. It's a sequel, kind of, to Cujo, because basically it features the father from Cujo at his age now, which is what, 70? He's pretty old. Yeah.
He's in his 70s. Yeah.
So it's a
and then the other
great
one-
story, though, because it's a ghost story. It's really cool.
Really cool. But it also has some really cool situations.
Yeah, it's not
the
about a
fact
rabid
that
dog.
Yeah, and the fact that it is in Florida, and the fact that it does have all of his, obviously he's vacationing there now or living there half the year or whatever.
He lives there like half the year, and in the winter. Yeah, he winters there.
He winters there. So, and then the third one I just wanted to mention, and I'll shut up, is the very last one, The Answer Man. I thought was really strong. Again, a really cool story, but it spans literally like 60 years in just this short story.
That's the one where he drives by the guy standing on the side of the road. Is that right?
Yes. It's
Yeah.
a very Clive Barker without the gore story to me. It's what it reminds me.
Oh, yeah. I could see that.
Because he's just driving down the road, sees the sign saying Answer Man 2 miles on the left. The guy has this whole hierarchy of, for X number of dollars, you get 5 minutes, any answer you want, and how it changes this guy's life. And very, very cool.
It's allegorical in a way. Do you really want to know the truth of what could happen? Do you really want to know when you're going to die and how?
It's that whole thing of, if you had all the answers to everything, what would you ask? And you're sure you want to ask that.
Right. It's very monkey's paw also.
Very true. Very true. Great book. Anybody who wants to read a good collection of short stories and or listen to a good collection. And what's really neat about it, I didn't even know, and is each one of them, he gives it a memorial and gives a reference to who it's inspired by. Like he has one that's very Lovecraftian called The Dreamers. And at the end of it, he goes, in recognition of our
He usually even
H.P. Lovecraft.
mentions the story, I think, that inspired it, doesn't he?
Yeah. Another one that I liked, sorry to go off on this.
I
Another one
love
that
the way
liked
he did
was
that. I love when you get to see behind the scenes of why he wrote that story.
The On the Slide In Road, which was the one about the family vacationing, and they take the road. Again, it's very Clive Barker because they take the road off the map and end up in a place with two killers. And it's how do you handle the two killers? And the character's an old grandfather, and the other
Yes.
one's
And the whole time I was reading it, I knew exactly where it came from. I was like, oh my God.
which is
Flannery O'Connor, A Good Man is
Flannery
Hard to
O'Connor,
Find.
yeah.
I was like, I cannot believe he is doing a story like this. I was like, he has to know this story exists. And then at the very end, he was like thinking of Flannery O'Connor. And I was like,
Yeah.
no wonder.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
And the references, again, we like Keyes anyway. And the fact that he's saying, okay, this is an homage to this. Blah, blah, blah,
Exactly.
this author.
Yeah,
It's really
great
good.
stuff.
Anyway, called You Like It Darker. It was brilliant. It was excellent. Stephen King is a master and always will be. And there you go. That's what I did in my spare genre week.
You know, that's awesome. I went in my genre week to a place that's been here almost Yeah, 10 years. This movie's been out 10 years, and it's always been on my radar, and I never watched it because I wasn't quite sure what it was. And it's not really a horror movie. It's called Green Room. Are you familiar with this?
No, I am not.
Like I said, it's been on my list for a while. I've always heard good things. I never got around to it, and I discovered recently it's an A24 film.
Oh, well, of course. Then it'll be good.
Like I said, it's not really a horror movie so much as a survival movie. It's written and directed by Jeremy Saulnier. I don't know anything about him, but he did direct some of the True Detective episodes, which I know that's a pretty highly acclaimed HBO show, so he's got some clout there. The cast is great and features not one, but two Star Trek alums.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it stars, and this is probably why it's not. It may be one of the reasons. No, I don't know. It stars Anton Yelchin, the guy that got killed, that played Chekhov. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with why this movie was not a big hit. Maybe he. I don't remember when he died. Do you?
Well, I don't remember the year, no.
This movie came out in 2015, and the other star is Patrick Stewart.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, and
Wait,
he
he's in a
plays.
survival horror movie?
He is the bad guy, and he is a skinhead leader.
Okay.
Yeah, he is like a Nazi skinhead leader in this movie. And Anton is the hero, of course. A synopsis is: a band straying into a secluded part of the Pacific Northwest stumbles onto a horrific act of violence. Because they are the only witnesses, they become the targets of a terrifying gang of skinheads who want to make sure all evidence is eliminated. Basically, they perform at this club that's this weird gig that they get indirectly, and this club is like a skinhead club. So,
Okay.
and they are not skinheads. They even say a few things to piss off the audience. This gets 90% on Rotten Tomatoes with 247 reviews, and I think it's well deserved. I was really into it when I was watching it.
Okay.
The only detraction were maybe a few questions of logic with the injuries, because he gets a really nasty injury to his arm, and I'm like, I don't know how he's using that arm the rest of the movie at all, and whether or not you could function, obviously. But I'll give him that, because it's like it's just a thrill ride survivor movie, and I think you would like it. You should probably check it out. You can find it like probably on Amazon or somewhere.
Yeah.
It's
The
streaming out
Green
there.
Room. Okay.
Green Room. And Green Room is what you think it is. It's the room where the band waits before they go on stage.
Oh, wait. I think I saw a trailer for this because they like trap them in there, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you should check it out. It would probably warrant being put on our list, even though it's not a horror movie, because it is definitely a suspense movie. So
Okay.
that's what I did, and you're going to have to segue out of that into our topic of the day.
Well, suspense and shock and people not wanting witnesses to things that they're doing bad
Stephen
works a
King.
little bit toward what we're talking about, which is this the third Marvel Universe film that we've done?
No. If you're talking about podcast episodes, we've done 3 Avengers movies, 2 episodes. One was a double feature.
Right, where
We've done Iron
the end of
Man.
the series, and then we did Iron Man.
So that would be 4 episodes, 5 movies. And then what some people don't realize is that we've got bonus episodes over on Patreon that we did of a lot of Marvel things like Shang-Chi and the Eternals and
True.
Marvel series and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So it feels like we've done more Marvel than we probably have.
Well, for those of you keeping up with us and who didn't know what you clicked on today, we are going to cover Captain America: The Winter Soldier. It came out in 2014. It was written by Christopher Marcus, Stephen McFeely, and Joe Simon, with a lot of input from the 2 directors, Anthony Russo and Joe Russo, the brothers, who basically took Marvel far beyond what it could have been, and I think they are two of the sole reasons that the Marvel Universe is what it is and has become. Kevin Feige, of course, is big and important in that, but the Russo brothers are really pretty dynamic in what the movies they've told. And this is my favorite Marvel movie of all of the Marvel movies, with Avengers being a very close second. The first
I don't know that I can pick a favorite.
This is my go-to for just having background noise on. If you don't know what you want to watch, put it on. If I'm in the mood for it, mostly because of the storytelling and the direction of this movie. A synopsis of it briefly, and then I'm sure we'll get into more of it as we go through.
Yeah, because it's got a lot of twists and turns.
Yeah, but we are basically following again. This is a sequel to the original Captain America movie, which was called The First Avenger, and again by the Russos. And this is following again our Captain America, who is Steve Rogers. It is just after the events in the Avengers. He has been awakened after decades of being frozen in essentially ice, suspended animation, and is trying to catch up on modern life, modern world, everything else. Of course, he wants to help out S.H.I.E.L.D., who was a company that was in its infancy, or an organization that was in its infancy when he went into deep freeze. And so director Nick Fury, our one-eyed Samuel Jackson, incredible character, is trying to help Stephen and help him become an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. when Nick is assassinated by an unknown assassin who seems to have abilities similar to Steve. Steve is thrust into a hugely terrifying world, and then when S.H.I.E.L.D. literally crumbles and realizes that it has been overtaken by Hydra, Steve and a few friends that he has to try to fight back. And talk about action. This is just well, that's my opinion. I've already said it's my favorite. What do you think of this particular film?
I would definitely put it in the top 10. There's been so many Marvel movies now. It's definitely one of the better ones. I do need to correct you, though. They did not do The First Avenger. That was Joe Johnstone.
You're right, Johnstone. They took it after
They
that.
did do Civil War, though, which was pretty much an Avengers movie in disguise. As far as seeing this movie, I didn't see any of the Captain America movies in the theater. I saw them on DVD shortly after.
Okay.
Or in streaming, however it was. I was probably DVD because streaming, Disney Plus didn't come around until a few years ago. But I like it a lot. I didn't know the story of the Winter Soldier, but I knew the story of Captain America and Bucky. And I knew Captain America came back because he was frozen in a block of ice floating in the ocean. But it was a little bit more primitive back in the 60s when they did stuff, or even further back. But I do remember Bucky coming back. And I think I told you one of my favorite Marvel comic book series was called The Invaders, and it was a story of a superhero team in the Nazi Germany era. And it was Captain America, Bucky, the Human Torch, Submariner, and that's basically it. It was like a trio with Bucky in there as well. But
Their version of Justice League.
Yeah, a smaller version that were fighting Nazis and Nazi criminals and Red Skull and things like that. So I was very familiar with the characters. I'm very familiar with Black Widow. I like this movie a lot just because of the familiarity with the characters. The Winter Soldier was just icing on the cake because I was like, holy cow, this is a great story to bring Bucky back as a villain. But I will agree with Kevin Feige that this is a spy movie disguised as a superhero movie. It's like an espionage movie with superheroes in it.
Oh yeah, there's tons of keys I've got for that from that perspective for this. And this was
or a political thriller is what he said, I believe.
I'm like you. I saw it on DVD. I did not see it in the theater. I wish I had because it's very action-packed. It's very huge, and the action, unlike later Marvels, the action in this it feels real to me. The pacing, the battles, the sequences, the way they're shot work in this to me. Later on, especially when you get into some of the later Marvel pieces, they can get a little ridiculous with what's happening. The one that jumps to mind immediately is Black Widow, the movie. a lot of the action in that is like, yeah, no, that's impossible.
I can't remember it. I've only seen it once.
Yeah, but remember they're like jumping around in the air with no parachutes from like falling debris in the satellite and jumping to different pieces of it. And I'm going, okay, these are not Captain America or the Hulk. These are human assassins that
Right.
don't have a super serum. So I'm not sure how this is even physically possible. And
Right.
the way it's shot is just really hectic too. But anyway, I thought this movie tells such a great story, starting so soft and so quiet with Dawn in DC, and he's just running around the mall. And he's, of course, immediately my cynical side was thinking, wait, isn't he a super soldier? Does he really have to run and like jog and stay in shape? It seems like it.
Sure.
Anyway,
He likes it. It's just like he likes telling the truth.
but yeah. But the characters, yeah, that's a great story. The characters, anytime you do a well, until you got the Civil War, these first two Captain America movies, there's such clear cut good and bad. There's such clear cut. Captain is on the side of the USA. He's like their version of Superman, which is
He
key to
is
me.
their version of Superman.
Yeah, and he is what's moral, what's right, what's the best thing to do. That's why he and Tony always argue, because Tony will push that moral ambiguity pretty strongly.
Well, I
But
was going to say, I disagree with you. He is definitely a good guy, and then there's definitely a bad guy. But there is some ambiguity when it comes to people like Nick Fury and ScarJo as Black Widow. At
well,
one
and
point, he discovers he can trust her eventually. And I love that line she has where she says, I only pretend like I know what I'm talking or what I know, or
yeah,
that I think that I know everything is right.
that I know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I love that line.
Well, but that's the crux of this. You had the first Avenger was this plucky young kid who lied and volunteered for the war, then ended up getting in this project, becoming the hero. But he was America. This is rah rah. This is gung ho. We're going to save the world. We're going to fight that evil, literal Red Skull Nazis and rah rah America. This
Hmm.
is Stephen, we know you love rah rah America. That's not what it really seems. It
Yeah.
may seem that way, but it's not. And even the first person you trusted, the first mission he goes on is with Black Widow, and he finds out she wasn't on the same mission he was.
Mm-mm.
She was there to steal
Secrets.
information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I can't trust her. I can't trust Nick because Nick is not telling me the truth. And
Hmm.
now I can't trust Pierce because I think Pierce is not telling me. And then suddenly everybody he knows, except for the new guy he just met, everybody he
Sam.
knows he can't trust. And it's all about more about this corruption of government and corruption of the US and how things can fester underneath the surface. It's very topical for right now. When they suddenly decide to burst forth and take over, they can destroy a lot of stuff really quickly.
Right. And I think one of the reasons the movie is so strong, and we've talked about this with horror movies, any movie, is the layering. And you're
Hmm.
talking about the whole corruption thing, but underneath that, we've got the whole story arc of what's Captain America's real name? I forgot.
Steve Rogers.
Rogers. His arc of being the good guy and all of a sudden like, where do I belong in this world? It's a parallel because first of all, he doesn't belong in this world. He was born in a different time, but now he's having to literally change his character and still keep his moral high, not high ground, but moral.
Oh yeah, I think it's moral high ground. I think it
Is
always
it?
has
Okay.
been. I think Steve Rogers is very much a right and wrong, black and white guy. That's why when
Hmm.
you get to Civil War, he's one of the first people you would think would sign the accords because it makes America look great and it's great internationally. But his whole topic is no, because they're not, I don't trust people anymore
Yeah.
after what happened with S.H.I.E.L.D. And I know what's right in myself. And if you order me not to do what's right, I can't do that.
Right.
Whereas in Civil War, Tony is very much into, look, we do this for a little while. We play the politic game. He's very big corporate. This is the
Right.
way we do it. And then we still can break the rules when we want
Yeah.
to.
It doesn't mean we have to. Just sign the
Right.
papers.
Just sign the papers. Yeah.
Exactly.
But to your point, the layering, I first start out trusting Scarlett, and she actually picks him up in like the first scene. And there's that flirty dialogue they have with each other. This is the flirtiest and sexiest Black Widow is in any of the movies.
She's great.
Yeah.
She's
And
such a star in this movie.
yes, she shines so, and she's awesome. But I trust her. We're going on this mission. We go. Now I can't trust her anymore. And slowly through the movie, it's how do I get to trust her again?
Right.
That's
right.
just one layer in there. The whole Nick Fury murder, not sort
Fake
of
death.
subplot.
Yeah.
Fake death is great. But usually we talk scenes. Are there scenes that stick out? Because I could go on like all of them.
Obviously, the action scenes are centerpieces. The fight in the elevator is phenomenal. Although I think they lifted that from another movie. They lifted it from Die Hard 3 or something, didn't they? Yeah, I think so.
Did they?
Yeah,
Really?
it's from like Die Hard with a. I've got it in my notes somewhere. Anyway, the scene where the Winter Soldier's face is seen, that's just got to be my number one scene because it's like one of those gut punches where you just lose your breath. Like, because I knew it was Bucky, but he didn't.
And I didn't. I didn't know any of because I never read the comics. So I am always coming into every Marvel movie with I don't know what the permutations are.
Okay.
What they're following or what they're changing from the original. So I never knew. So it was a huge reveal to me.
I didn't read the Winter Soldier comics. They didn't come out till later, like in the 21st century, I think.
Yeah.
But I didn't know who Bucky was once it happened. And so I was going into it kind of blind too. But we also knew Bucky from the first movie.
Yes.
So, yeah.
He'd been established, Sebastian Stan had been established as Bucky in the first one, and that's fine. But for his first two scenes in this, his face is covered.
It's covered, yeah.
So I didn't see Bucky.
And he is badass.
Oh, God. Because that goes to one of my favorite scenes, will always, in all of Marvel Universe, be one of my favorite scenes. It's the Nick Fury car chase.
Yeah.
I think is awesome. It is so well filmed. The technology is so cool. The way it's
And there's a
paced
Winter
is
Soldier reveal in it too. Very much like the one with Captain America, where he just all of a sudden Nick sees him and he's like, "What the hell is this? This is a
that
lot
thing
more
underneath
dangerous."
the car.
Yeah. And he has that scene where he gets flipped in the air. I can't remember if it's the same scene or not, and literally uses his arm to like grip the concrete and just drag down it to slow him down. He's like something Superman would do. Crazy.
Yeah, that one, the elevator's good. I said already, I like the opening. I like the way that's paced and the on your left.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the way Sam and he meet, and he's got the list of things he should do that he looks at.
And Sam just tells him to listen to the Marvin Gaye album. It takes care of everything.
Yeah, that's all you need.
That's all you need.
I think the helicarrier battle is amazing. Just everything with it, the way it's shot, the CGI looks great. It's just a great sequence. I think the Pierce and Black Widow scene is really good. And that is, to me, Black Widow doing what Black Widow does best. When she impersonates the woman.
You mean after she takes her mask off and he sees who it is? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And when she's over there going, I'm going to release, he goes, if you release that, this will happen. She goes, yeah. Uh-huh. And she's just...
And well, he says, well, what do you think the world's going to think when your secrets are revealed? She says, what do you think they're going to think when your secrets are revealed?
When yours are. Yeah.
It's
so
great.
I really liked her in that sequence. And then, the Zola reveal is really cool too. It's kind of wild, comes from really nowhere.
In New Jersey.
Yeah, when he's Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah, yeah. It's in that old bunker in New Jersey where he went to like Army training camp.
Where he trained. Yeah. And I really liked that because that really threw a science fiction element into it too, and took it out of this current spy thriller that we were watching. Now suddenly we're into this weird, anything could happen if this
very
guy
Big
could still
Brother.
be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. The algorithm.
I'm surprised they didn't use Red Skull for that, but it makes more sense that it was Zola.
It would. I also think that kept a couple of layers too, because it's not necessarily Hitler's legacy, but it's Goebbels and Mengele's and everything else. And if you can keep them alive, then it shows, oh my gosh, this insidious horror is still out there. You don't have to have the icon to do it.
Well, and like any movie, they always bring characters back. Red Skull came back 1,000 times in the modern days too. So
Oh, okay. So I
yeah,
didn't know that in the comic books.
yeah, in the comic books. But I like this better because it's obviously a movie that a lot more thought has gone into the story and making every element of it great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just pared down everything so there's not unnecessary scenes. That scene that we're talking about, the Zola reveal scene, is a little bit villain exposition, like a James Bond scene where, well, let me tell you my nefarious plan because I'm going to kill you anyway.
Yes, I'm Dr. Evil.
Yeah, so it is a little bit that, but other than that, this movie really kicks all the way
Well,
through.
and they knew to break it up with Abyssal.
Yeah.
They're like, we're going to make this scene and then we're going to just bring you back the action really fast. Duck.
But even Agent Hill is great in this. All of
yeah.
the supporting characters are great in this. It just works. So
Well, and it's not
funny.
Civil War where there's so many superheroes. It's practically an Avengers movie. Really, all you've got are Cap, Natasha, the Winter Soldier, and Sam, and that's it. And Sam doesn't even come in really till the end, which is a great reveal too.
It's another great reveal. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you because I am not a big Civil War fan, mostly because I hate that Fall of Tony theme in that one or storyline in that. And I really don't like the whole airport scene in it. Looks like it's a double page fold out in a comic book. And I don't necessarily agree with that. You know, they're
They
both
do
standing
some of
in-
that in Infinity War and Endgame too, where it
But I
looks
don't
like a
mind
tableau.
I don't mind the cover shot when they always go to the slow motion and it's showing every character in there, the perfect dynamic. I don't mind that. But this whole we're in two lines parallel standoff on the airport runway, it was like, okay, sure. Plus the fact that I don't like Ant-Man and he's got
That
a
was the
lot to
cover
do
of
with
the
that
comic
movie.
book. They were mimicking it. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And it's Ant-Man and I don't like him. So
Oh, I don't mind Ant-Man at all. Any other scenes? Obviously, every
all of
scene
them.
in this movie is
Yeah.
pretty damn good.
This scene is great. The bridge escape is good. The elevator attack is good. There's so much that works. Even Nick's death is dramatic and it's poignant and it works. Then when
I
they
still
find
don't
him again,
understand it.
works.
I'm like, how did they pull that off? Because those were real doctors there working on him.
Yeah, well, it had to be Hill. Hill had to do something.
Yeah,
She
something.
was there. Yeah. And I'm sure he had plans for that. With the way they do the spy sequence before Nick gets shot, the way Cap is just coming in and he notices the neighbor and he flirts with her a little bit and talks to her. And then he hears the music and realizes that he didn't do the music. That wasn't me. And so he sneaks in and then sees Nick, and Nick is saying one thing, but he's printing out stuff on his little beeper that says something different, like
Right.
trust no one or shield compromise.
It's very X-Files, yes.
And it's very, and then the way he is literally shot through the freaking wall, which is a great death scene.
Well, and it's all, oh, first of all, I love that scene because it's just him and Nick and it's quiet for a moment. And then it's Cap's introduction to the Winter Soldier when he sees him with the mask before he realizes it's Bucky.
And with her, and she actually comes in with a gun drawn.
Oh, yeah, his next door neighbor is an agent that's there to watch him or whatever. Yeah.
And we find out later she's even more than an agent. She has a huge backstory in the MCU. But the way she comes in with a gun, he goes, "Hello, neighbor."
Yeah, that's great.
And then he goes, "I'm sorry, Captain Rogers. I've been assigned to here to protect you." And he goes, "Assigned by who?" And she looks down and sees Fury and goes, "By him." I thought that was just really cool. It's a great sequence. There's so many good sequences in it.
Walking through your own memorial in Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
and they do it twice because they do it with Bucky in the post-credit sequence where he walks through his own memorial.
Yeah.
That's really, I don't even know what the word is. It's unnerving in a way to think that with Captain America, everyone knows he's still alive. With Bucky, he thinks he was dead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like the way they end it, even though they don't really resolve the Bucky storyline in this movie. I still like the way they end it. It feels like it's resolved a little bit.
I don't think they should have resolved it. I like it. I like it leaving with that ambiguity.
But he
And
does save him, which
yes,
suggests a lot.
correct, correct. And the mid-credit scene in this is when we first see the twins. And
Yeah.
that's such a setup. And I found out, trivia, since we're ready for trivia and production or whatever, that was written and directed by Joss Whedon.
Oh, yeah, I did read that. And I think the other one was directed by someone else as well,
Yeah,
I
because he
think.
was getting ready to do Ultron. So that's why he was,
Correct.
and he had just done Avengers.
Which
So
would have Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in it.
in Ultron, yes.
Yes, yes. Before we jump to trivia, I can run through some of the cast members really quickly, but
Oh
I'm not
God, yeah,
going to, obviously, we don't have to talk much about them because everyone out there should know who these people are probably.
of course.
Chris Evans obviously plays Steve Rogers slash Captain America. He is, well, he got his start with Marvel playing the Human Torch in one of those early failed Fantastic Four attempts, and it didn't stick. And then I read a story where Robert Downey Jr. convinced him to take the Captain America role. He was like, just do it. You'll be glad you did.
And Chris Pratt had to be persuaded to play Star-Lord. They had to really negotiate with him to do that because he didn't want to do that part.
And I can't see anybody else doing it. I think he's
I know.
perfect in that
He's
role.
perfect. He's perfect in
Yeah.
that role. All of them are. I saw in a trivia thing, I think once on Disney Channel, that the same casting director, at least for the first two phases through Endgame, the same casting director cast everyone. She cast every single role. And I think she deserves 19 million Oscars for that because the MCU casting, I don't think has ever been bad. I can't remember one person where I go, they weren't really good in that part. Everybody, minor roles, big roles, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the movies that don't do as well, like Eternals, I think they're well cast too.
Well, and the Thor movies. I'm not a big Thor fan, but I think the casting in those
The
movies is great.
casting's great. It's got Brendan Gleeson in it. Oh my God. He's like one of
Yeah,
my favorite actors.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anthony Hopkins. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the casting is very pivotal to make these realistic superheroes seem realistic in this world they're creating, and to hire great talent to do that is vital. And
Well,
she,
and speaking of which, coming up next is Sam Jackson, who plays Nick Fury. And
Mhm.
I don't know where they got the idea to cast Sam Jackson in that role because it is completely opposite what the character looks like in the comic books. I don't know if you've ever seen Nick Fury for real,
Mm-mm.
but he
No.
has a flat top like J. Jonah Jameson, a mustache. He's white and he's always chomping on a cigar. He's like Mr. Big Army guy.
God, what you describe is what's the
The guy
what's the
that plays
movie
J. Jonah Jameson.
what's the movie with the little figures that come to life? It's Toy Soldiers. Is the name of the movie, and
Oh,
they're a group of military toys that end up
mhm.
getting special like chips in them and they come to life and the whole thing's done with like stop animation, so it's really good. But
Hmm.
the sergeant in it is that flat top,
Yeah.
mustache,
Big, thick mustache,
always with a
chomping on a
cigar.
cigar, square
Yeah,
jaw, and muscly. And even though Jackson brings a little bit of that, he doesn't bring that much. He brings a level of like coolness that is so unlike anything Nick Fury was in the comic books that I just think he's great casting.
oh, he's great.
Scarlett Johansson, I can't say enough about her. I think she's phenomenal in this movie. I think she's phenomenal
Amazing.
in most movies. Highly, highly talented
Oh yeah,
individual.
yeah, very much so.
And then Robert Redford plays Alexander Pierce. And there's a couple of reasons why he is in this movie. The one is that his grandchildren were like, you need to be in a Marvel movie. We know you're an actor, Grandpa, but you need to be in a Marvel movie. And
Perfect.
second was he wanted to play a villain, and he's never played a villain before.
Hmm.
And that was why he did it. He was usually the good guy. He was the Chris Evans in All the President's Men. And
Yep.
in this, he is the bad guy. He is undercover as the leader of Hydra, basically.
And what works is one of the core acting lessons for any actor is the villain never thinks they're the villain. if you want to play a villain correctly, the villain thinks they're the hero. They think they're
Right.
right. And Pierce does. Robert Redford plays him so good and
Yeah.
so cold. Oh, man.
Yeah. And it's so cool to see scenes with him and these other actors because I'm thinking, they love getting a scene with him. I mean,
Oh,
that's
gosh,
just
yeah.
great.
Of
And all of
course.
them have scenes with him. Even the Winter Soldier has a scene with him.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Speaking of the Winter Soldier, that's Sebastian Stan. He got on my radar when he was in that movie I, Tanya. He plays the husband, I think, of Tanya Harding, that is the one that actually
Okay.
clubs Nancy Kerrigan. That's the first time I think I ever remember seeing him
Sure.
because I didn't ever make the correlation that he was also in the Marvel movies. And now I see him everywhere. And he just got nominated for an Oscar for playing Trump in The Apprentice. He didn't win, but he looks just like a young Donald Trump. I was shocked when I saw it.
Scary.
Yeah. And Kobe Smulders plays Maria Hill. We know her because
Yes.
she pops into all these movies and TV series as Agent Hill.
She's
However,
essentially Nick Fury's right-hand woman.
and there's a big surprise about her in Secret Wars, or no, whatever the name of that series is with him and the Crawl.
Oh, I haven't seen
Skrulls.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I told you. But anyway, Frank Grillo plays Brock Rumlow. He is who we think's a good guy and ends up being another Hydra agent, or at least he's
Yeah.
taking orders from Hydra and obeying them. Somehow I missed Anthony Mackie. He plays Sam Wilson, also the Falcon.
Is
Little
later
contra-
to don the mantle of Captain America.
and he is Captain America now, and
Hmm.
it's a little controversial because in the comic books, I'm fairly certain that Winter Soldier becomes Captain America, and it seems more appropriate that Bucky would. I'm okay with it, though. I like Anthony Mackie. I think Falcon's a great character. I have not seen this new movie with Harrison Ford, Brave New World, I think's the name of it.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it's not getting good reviews, so I don't know. I want to see it because a lot of Marvel movies don't get good reviews, and you and I end up loving them. So,
Yeah, Eternals is one
Eternals
of
got
those.
terrible reviews, and I still love that movie.
Shang-Chi, great action, great story.
Yeah, Shang-Chi got better reviews, though.
Yeah, then
Eternals
Eternals.
didn't. Yeah.
No.
Let's see. Anybody else? Well, Emily Van Camp plays Agent 13, the neighbor we were talking about. Oh, no.
And she turns,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, it is
she's
her.
Agent 13, and you find out, I think you find out in Civil War, don't you? Or do you find out in this? I can't remember because I get her sub-story mixed up because you find out she is Peggy Carter's niece. And Peggy Carter founded S.H.I.E.L.D. and was Captain America's love interest.
Back in the 40s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she is in her 80s in this, isn't she? I think.
Okay, so this is the one where you find out because he goes to the funeral.
Right. And Haley Atwell played Peggy Carter, since you mentioned her. Toby Jones reprises his role as Armin Zola, who
Zola.
you said is the ghost in the machine. Stan Lee does a cameo that's pretty damn funny.
Yeah, all of them are.
I'm so fired.
I'm so fired.
And Jenny Agutter is in here.
Yes.
Last time we saw her was in Logan's Run, running around in a scantily clad outfit that you found very arousing when you were a teenager.
Good. Yes.
Who else? Gary Shandling has a part in this. It was
Yeah.
one of the last movie roles he did before he died, and he's a Hydra guy too. He's
Yeah, I think
Senator
that's
Stern.
It's one of the first hints we get is when he leans forward and whispers, "Hail Hydra."
Yeah.
You know, and you go, "Uh-oh."
Yeah, I'm a huge,
cool.
Gary Shandling fan. But that's all I have on cast. As far as awards, this movie was nominated for an Oscar for visual effects. It lost to Interstellar.
Of course it did.
It was nominated for 5 Saturn Awards: supporting actress Johansson, actor Evans, supporting Jackson, supporting Mackie, writing Marcus and McFeely, and it won none because this was the year of Interstellar. For some reason, Interstellar was on, I guess, the sci-fi warpath. This movie is not on the 1001 movies you must see before you die list, and I think that's probably a mistake.
Oh, I definitely think it's a mistake. Like I said, it's of all of them, even Avengers and Ultron and Endgame, This is my favorite Marvel movie. I can watch it over and over and over again.
I can too, but I can watch all the Avengers movies over and over. And I can watch
Yes,
Iron Man over and over.
the original, the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the first one. There's other ones that are just as good, but they're also probably on the list. I'm confused as to why this one's not on the list. Of course, I really like the first Captain America movie too,
Oh yeah,
but
I thought it was
you know,
good.
you just got to go back in the past and watch a war movie. What else? Oh, that's it. That's cast and awards. We can move on to trivia and keys if you're ready.
Some
Put you
of the
up a little picture there.
trivia that I have is just little stuff that I copped in looking at or watching documentaries. Two of them are Anthony Mackie. Mackie, there's an entire sequence of almost like outtakes, but he liked to end every cut by saying, "Cut the check,"
Yeah, I saw that.
because he was so happy to be in a Marvel movie. And it turns out it's because he like sent dozens and dozens and dozens of emails saying he needed to be in a Marvel movie, he needed to be in a Marvel movie. I want to be in a Marvel movie. Put me in a Marvel movie. Until Kevin Feige finally sent him to
Well,
audition.
he
And
actually, I don't know if you know this, but he auditioned for the Mandarin in Iron Man.
oh, perfect.
Wasn't it Iron?
Uh,
Isn't that Iron Man? Isn't Mandarin Iron Man?
that's the Iron Man 2, I think, has
It's
the
it's like the
Mandarin in
second
it.
or third one. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
yeah, and it ended up being Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was two of the little ones I had from that, which was
I
cool.
have one little trivia thing that I think's funny. Robert Redford's the only cast member who was alive when Captain America debuted in 1941.
Oh my God.
Yeah, everyone else, of course, is much younger. So.
But as far as we know, he may be a Disney animatronic. We don't know about Robert because he still looks great for his
Well,
age.
he's
He may.
definitely got somebody doing some color on his hair. There's never gray in it. It's
I'm
always blonde.
sure it is. I'm sure it's always blonde. Yeah.
But that's all the trivia I have. We can move on to keys. Most of mine I copped from IMDb, but I'm sure a lot will come to me as we're discussing it.
Oh, okay. My first key, of course, is you've got to go back to the original comics and you've got to say, if we're talking about key influences, then obviously Stanley and all of the great work that the original writers and comic book artists did have influenced Feige, the Russo brothers, the writers, everybody in Marvel Universe. Because, like you said, it seems like there are times when they take them straight with the storyline that's there, or to a point and then diverge, or they take a character and they go, we can contemporize this in a way that's really positive, like Nick Fury.
Mhm.
So he's not just Sergeant Wilco. He's got a lot more contemporization to him that works, I
Yeah.
think. So, yeah.
Can I say something? I really like the uniform in this movie. I like the navy blue as opposed to the royal blue that we're used to Captain America wearing. I think he looks cooler in the navy blue outfit.
Oh, yeah. Much cooler than, yeah, his uniform changes have been much more subdued in work to a lot better. That's why, isn't it, isn't it in game where they're going, that's America's ass?
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. It makes me want to watch it.
But Fury
I've
is great all the way through this,
mhm.
too. The original, definitely, which was called the first Avenger. And then Avengers. Anthony Mackie has said this should be called Avengers 1.5 because he thinks it's like a continuation of that story, which it definitely is. There's definitely
It
connections to Avengers.
it starts the ball rolling on the whole superheroes bad or good thing. Yeah,
Yeah, we're not all good. Yeah,
right.
I think.
And speaking of America's ass, I put Superman because he really is the Marvel equivalent to Superman.
Oh, yeah.
He's just not from another planet.
I totally think you could probably find comparisons, whether or even to Natasha. I'm sure there is a DC spy that is female. I just don't know comic books enough to say that. If you guys are out there listening and or watching and know, let us know in the comments.
I don't know. I don't recall one in Justice League, and that was pretty much my DC comic.
Right.
But I think of Black Canary, and she was a superhero that had a really high
Yeah.
voice. Anyway, another one that I happened to catch recently, like I watched this movie less than a month ago for the first time, is 3 Days of the Condor,
Oh
which
God,
is Robert Redford, basically a spy movie, suspense movie.
the ones that I've got, and these were actually cited by the Russo brothers as influence, because what I read was, trivia-wise, when they first got the first draft of this, there wasn't as much political intrigue. It was much more superhero feats and action pieces all thrown together and everything. And they are the ones that said, no, this needs to be contemporized. We need to set this modern, and this needs to be Captain figuring out that Hydra has infiltrated, and it needs to be a spy thriller. So they said they were influenced by Clute, which is the Jane Fonda film,
I watched that recently too.
Parallax View, which is a big 70s thriller. 70s. 3 Days of the Condor, of course, All the President's Men, French Connection, and To Live and Die in L.A. So all of
Oh,
those
wait.
were
I didn't have that. Parallax View. What else?
all the President's Men, which is all the political intrigue of who do you trust and who you do not trust, and your friends may
Right.
not be who their friends are. The French Connection, which of
French,
course
what?
is,
Because of the car chase, maybe?
well, they said it was, again, there's more plotting going on than what the hero realizes.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. And then
And
To
then
Live and Die in L.A., which I have not seen since the 80s.
Yeah.
And I remember really liking that movie. I just don't
Yeah.
remember it at all.
I think wasn't that Michael Mann?
It
Did that, I
was, and
think?
it's got
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of Marvel.
And William Peterson, isn't he in that too? The
I
same guy
think
from
so.
CSI?
The guy from Manhunter, maybe?
Yeah, Manhunter and
Yeah.
CSI. Yeah.
I
So,
need to
so they
watch
have
that
stated
again.
all of that, and I think it wasn't so much I think it's for a variety of reasons. Those movies they've said have influenced the shape of this film.
And there's
They were
some
definitely
killer
keys.
car chasing in French Connection, and there's some
Oh
killer
God,
car
yeah.
chasing in this movie too.
That doesn't go over the top. Another one that I thought of was Dark Knight, because this is very similar to this is a darker version of the MCU.
Instead of the entire city being corrupt, it's just his world that's
It's
corrupt.
just
Yeah.
Shield, yeah. But the car chases and the quiet, intimate scenes where you find out that you can't trust who you can't trust, sort of thing. So yeah,
I mentioned the X-Files because I never really even considered that until we mentioned it earlier, because
yeah,
that's a very X-Files type scene. You mentioned the comet. Well, I will mention the first Avenger, the movie that preceded this. That's definitely a key. And you mentioned Stan Lee. I had to throw in Jack Kirby as well because they did help create the character. I think Kirby drew him originally. He may have come on later, but I think Kirby was there. I'm pretty sure. No, wait a minute. They would have resurrected him in the 60s because Captain America, that comic book came out in the 40s before Stan Lee worked with Marvel. So I guess they would be more connected to the modern Captain America, would be, I guess, what I should say. I don't know who actually were the originals. I should probably look that up. We have a definite War Games connection to this.
well, yeah, it's an
mean,
Easter egg. Yeah,
in multiple ways. First, you've got the computer with a mind of its own, but then you've also got Natasha quoting the movie.
yeah. Shall we play a game?
Shall we
Yeah.
play a game?
And there's the countdown, which keeps the whole last third of the movie going, and the same as in War Games, where you've got to stop it before it launches the attack.
The ticking bomb.
Syndrome.
I've just found it in my notes. You said Die Hard, Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Yeah,
Has an
it's like the
elevator
third
fight scene.
one, I think.
Yeah.
Because isn't the second one Die Harder?
Maybe.
I can't remember. But this is
think
like
this- I think that's the four. I think
no, the
that's
fourth one is Live Free and Die Hard.
The second one is at the airport.
Yeah,
And
and
the
I think it's
third
called
one-
Die Harder, isn't it?
It might be. And the third one with a Vengeance is the one with Samuel Jackson, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty
Don't
sure.
know.
It's
and I
Bruce
love the
Sam
first
Jackson.
one. I'm just not a fan of all of the other ones. No, they just call it Die Hard 2. I think Die Harder was a joke. And then Die Hard with a Vengeance was 1995, and Live Free or Die Hard is 2007. And then there's a
Okay.
new one from 2013 called A Good Day to Die Hard. Bruce
Sorry, I
Willis
missed
needed some money. So anyway, but yeah, that the whole elevator scene I think was lifted from that. The idea of a fight in an elevator.
Okay. I have keys. I have James Bond, of course, because of the villain speech. You could also say any of the Austin Powers or Dr. Evil, any of that, where the villain is going to tell you his master plan right before he kills you.
So it would
Kind
really
of
just be James
cliche.
Bond villains,
Yeah, James Bond villain.
or
Let me reveal my evil plan to you.
Doctor Evil would be the other one.
Dr. Evil. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the villain in Austin Powers. Yeah.
I've got, and I realized I was wrong because when I first started taking notes before I rewatched it again, I said, "Oh yeah, the whole dark conspiracy of the holographic leaders of Shield/Hydra, who we saw him in Avengers because Nick Fury is talking to him, and they're the ones that ordered the missile in. But they're in this too, and Pierce talks to them. And they're also in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I was getting ready to
several
say
times.
you haven't mentioned that yet, and I knew you were going to.
Yeah, but Powers Booth isn't in this one. But he's in Avengers, he's in Ultron, and he's in S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, there's definitely. I've watched 4 seasons now of Agents of Shield. I took a break. I haven't watched one in a while, but there is a definite connection to Agents of Shield because of
Oh my gosh.
the
So
whole Hydra within Shield plot line. Got it.
became an entire season in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.,
Yeah,
essentially. Yeah.
maybe even more than one. Yeah,
Yeah, it had ramifications going way down the line in Agents of
yeah.
S.H.I.E.L.D., which was great. Because I really like that series, and I'll state again, as I do every time we do a Marvel movie, that I think it's very wrong that they don't consider that canon.
I feel like it is. I don't know why you say that, but Sitwell. I don't know if you knew this, but the guy that plays Sitwell, they had talked about casting Clark Gregg in that role. Did you know that?
Oh, I know. He's such a good guy. I don't want to see him be a bad guy. Sitwell's a dweeb. I don't like
Yeah.
Sitwell.
Yeah, I read that
Um,
somewhere, and I forgot I didn't have it in my notes.
I've
Um,
got what other keys you have? Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say this is another X-Files key, really, but Black Widow mentions Operation Paperclip.
She does. I have
And
that in here.
Paperclip, we learn in the X-Files, was a covert American operation to bring Nazi scientists into our, spare them.
If they would work covertly for the United States. Yep. I've got Pulp Fiction, just because when they go to Fury's grave, the quote on the gravestone, his Ezekiel quote from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, that's
So it's
pretty
more of an
funny.
Easter egg than an actual influence on the
Yeah, some
film.
of these
But
are. I would consider War Games almost an Easter egg as well.
yeah,
And what else?
I've got Metal Gear Solid. It was a game, but it's very similar to this storyline where you, as the character you're playing in the game, realize that the guys who sent you on the mission are really the bad guys, and has a huge fight aboard an aircraft carrier in the game at the climax.
And what's that called again?
It's called Metal Gear Solid.
Metal
So,
Gear Solid?
yeah, huge PlayStation game. Yeah, it was very big, very popular.
I have one last thing that's a key that
Sure.
I was going to read verbatim. It's a little long. I lifted it off IMDb, but I found it interesting.
Okay.
According to Kevin Feige, every Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 2 movie has an homage to Star Wars in the form of a character losing an arm.
Really?
Yeah, in Iron Man 3, Aldrich Killian loses an arm during his battle with Tony Stark. In Thor: The Dark World, Loki cuts off Thor's arm on Svartalfheim. I can't pronounce that.
Yeah.
In Captain America: Winter Soldier, Bucky lost his arm during his fall from the train. In Guardians of the Galaxy, Gamora cuts off Groot's arm during the group's initial scuffle on Xandar. So that's interesting.
I had never thought of that before, but
So
it
I guess
makes perfect
Star
sense.
Wars is a key. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's interesting, though. But that's the last one I had. I just thought it was cute.
Well, I'll end with one thing. It was part of a review I read of it, but I wrote it because I thought it was a really intelligent way of looking at it. Says Evans plays the earnestness of Captain America's black and white morality with convincing finesse in an age of gray that he has yet to find a comfort in.
Yeah. That
And
sums
I
it
feel like
up.
that's really what the movie is.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talk about references. This movie has huge permutations extending into the MCU down. So it directly leads to Civil War
Hmm.
because Tony finds out some really bad stuff about Winter Soldier. Captain America is still trying to help the Winter Soldier,
And Black Panther ends up being the one to do it.
and
Yeah,
Black Panther joins the fight too, and
yeah.
everything, and also the role of Agent 13 we find out becomes Peggy's niece, and then she later on becomes the beginning of a big uber villain in one of the last series I watched. I can't remember what the name of it. It's not
No.
no, but it's her and the guy from Civil War. I can't remember his name. The bad guy in that, the German guy. It's him and her become like dual villains in it. I can't remember what movie that was or what series that
I
was. It
can't
was really good.
either.
Yeah,
As a
enjoyed
matter
it.
of fact, I will just use Marvel movies in general, with exception to the first Avenger, as
Yeah.
far as keys, because there's no point in me listing them all on the show notes when people see this or listen to it on the website. I forgot what I was going to say. It was something else about Marvel. Oh, we forgot when we were talking about top 10 Marvel movies, I neglected to mention Black Panther. That's another one that's up there too. But I would definitely think that Winter Soldier probably has a place in the top 10 for sure, even though it's not
Hmm.
my favorite. The more superheroes, the better. Give me Infinity War or Endgame.
My order would probably be this one, Avengers, Ultron, and Infinity War. Those would be my
But
top 5.
you're a big Russo brothers and Josh, what's his face,
Joss Whedon,
fan.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
And then Iron Man, of course, is in there too. Oh,
Well, see,
I
that's
thought
what
of
I
it.
would say. Right there, you've got John Favreau. I think he is also a major contribution to Marvel and Star Wars,
Yeah.
because his properties in those two respective franchises to me are stellar. So,
The other political series is the one that she's in, Van Camp, who plays Peggy's niece. It's Falcon and Winter Soldier. That series, the other, which is another very political, militaristic government film.
I watched it, but I can't really remember the plot. I
Well,
just remember
it
that it's Sam and Bucky
It's
instead
Sam
of,
and Bucky.
yeah.
Sharon Carter, who is Emily, is in it, and
Hmm.
Baron Zemo, the guy who's the bad guy in Civil War.
Okay.
He's the villain in it,
Oh,
essentially.
yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, great actor, really good. And basically it's the formation of all the ones that I think are going to come out now, because it's also got, who was Seinfeld's girl in it? Can't remember.
Elaine?
Elaine. Remember, she becomes the woman
Oh,
who's
you're
kind
talking
of
about
like the
Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Yes, she has a role in Marvel now. Yes.
yes, she's like heading up the Dark Avengers kind of thing.
Right.
So you've got like
She's recruiting.
John Walker, who's Wyatt. He's a Kurt Russell's son. Wyatt
Wyatt
Russell. Yeah.
Russell. I like him. Yeah.
Who becomes like the new Captain America, who's not really Captain America. He's like a mean Captain
Oh
America
my
because
God,
he's
that's great. I forgot all about that.
oh, and he's very Homelander like. If you want to think about keys, very
Yeah.
Homelander influence there. But
And
anyway,
speaking of
we
which,
digress.
well, we would be remiss if we didn't go further to say that the Russo brothers are back and they are taking us into the next two Avenger films. If you go on IMDb right now, you'll
Yes.
see that Doomsday and Secret Wars, or I think it's called Secret Wars, whatever it's called,
Yes.
are both being directed by these guys. So we got more to see.
And they're brilliant, and I love it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right. Well, I think that does it for today's topic, Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I think David and I both like that. If you didn't realize that with this conversation, then I don't know where you've been hiding. We'd like to thank you folks for joining us today. We are winding down the season. I don't know. We only have about 4 movies left, and next one's a redux back into horror land, and it may even
Yes.
continue to the following week. So that's a good teaser for
What?
you folks out there. We are going into the depths of horror, and if you Don't get enough of us from this show. We've got other shows out there, little shorts we have on YouTube, or if you just like listening to us, or if you want to see videos of us elsewhere, you can pop on over to Patreon, where we have some free shows, bonus shows. These Marvel shows I mentioned earlier are on there, but we also have some subscription shows. If you're a fan of the X-Files or Star Trek, we've been doing them episode by episode. We're about 2 seasons into Star Trek, and we're getting into the 4th season of the X-Files, and all of that is over on Patreon, and we could always use your support to supplement any minor expenses we incur in producing this show, and we thank you if you're already there supporting us, because, well, where would we be without you? Yeah. And until next week, David, I will see you out there in those dark theaters.
We'll see you then. Have a good
All righty.
Can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.